So you had developments happening all over the place. Now, for the Slavs, this started to develop. They started to get in contact, you could basically say, with these empires, these kingdoms, these peoples, this civilization, basically. So, then they started to develop their own states. Now, the first Slavic state to develop was Kiev. Now, where the Slavs come from? Now, the Vikings at this time, it's an interesting connection, okay? But we're going to get into that as we go on. Okay? But here's the introduction of this chapter, what we're actually going to discuss. The first East Slavic polity, Rus. Okay? Centered in Kiev on the river Dnieper. Cannot pronounce it. Emerged in the 9th century AD. It became a major state in medieval Europe. It became a powerhouse. It became recognized. People knew it was there. And eventually, in time, what usually happened was they eventually converted to Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Approximately when this actually happened, they actually converted. The official date, which most historians put on, is 988 AD. This was the first, and this would set off a huge reaction. There's a reaction. This was going to set a whole new blueprint for the future, which at that time no one really knew. This was going to set the stage for a religious conflict. This was going to divide Europe on a religious scale. Huge. There became a battle, a war for the soul of human beings. And this was survival. Orthodox Christianity at the time, basically after the fall of Constantinople in 1453 by the Ottoman Turks, and the establishment of the Ottoman Empire at this time, but actually before that, this became really established, was basically then. At the time, if you really look at the world at the time, yeah, there was a lot of Orthodox people, but there was not too many Orthodox states or entities or polities that could say, we are standing up for the Orthodox religion. We are a nation or an empire of Orthodox, especially after the fall of Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire. So you had these conversions. This sets the stage. And pretty much you had a lot of cultural and political development over that time, especially after 988 AD, which pretty much is a very important date in Russian history. 13th century Russia was then eventually, in the 13th century, the Mongols conquered Russia. This was a shaping period. This was a transition period for Russia. Russia, you're going to look at Russia before this happened, then you're going to look at Russia after it happened. Totally different transfer. This is like totally transformation. Russia takes on a whole different mentality. It takes a whole outlook on life. What it had before was amazing. During that period of occupation by the Mongols, or the Mongol yoke, it's called, and the Russians being occupied, at the time you had the Russian principalities, which is also a period. We're going to look into that as well. But Russia really takes on a different shape. Its character changes. Okay, if you looked at it, it's like, okay, it's like this. Remember the person that just loved water? Got in the water all the time? Let's put it this way. Think the person about driving. Okay? They love to drive. The freedom of driving from point A to point B all the time. Boom! One day, they have this huge accident. I mean, the car flipped over 50 times. They got rammed by another SUV, let's say. You know? Boom! They go to the hospital. They come out of the hospital all recovered with maybe plates in their head, broken bones, and things that they can't do anymore. Could be paralyzed. They could have rods in their back. They can't do as much as they used to, maybe. But it doesn't matter. They come out after that period, they step out of the hospital, start all over. They're an entirely different person because they don't want to drive no more. They get the idea that they're scared of driving. Now, if someone came up to you and said, I'm scared of driving, and I really don't want to drive a car, there's a reason why. Okay? And if you look in their history, you know that accident. You were a happy driver and everything before. That accident happened, now you're, whoa. You're not looking too good. You know, you're entirely different when it comes around vehicles and driving, skidoos. Anything that has a motor and a gas pedal or a throttle, you're different. What happened? And plus, during that period when you're in the hospital, you get a lot of thinking, that person. So, you got to look at that. And the Mongol period is like that accident. It was like a huge, tragic event that ultimately changed the mentality of the Russian people. It changed the way they looked at their government. It changed the way they looked out on the world around them. And they realized, you know what? We do not want to be occupied again. No. Sirree Bob. This ain't going to work out. What happened in that period? You know, some periods of occupation in other nations was like they got occupied all the time. It's like, hey, well, it can't have been as worse as the last time. It changes the mentality and the behavior of the people that live there. That's something else we're going to look at in Mongol period. So everything, that's one big thing that we're actually going to look at, okay? How did that change Russia? And even today, the seeds and the actions and the entire event of the Mongol period still has fragments of its existence and threads that you can find in Russia today. Why is Russia the way it is? It actually can go way, way further back to the Mongol period, and even a little bit beyond. We're going to learn about that as well. Depends exactly what you're looking for. And it was pretty much like the Golden Horde. Horde, what do you mean? Okay, the first thing that we're actually going to look at is the origins of Rus. And the development of Russia is very interesting. You learn the development of Russia when you get to the Vikings. Vikings is Eastern European history, and that's one of my areas too, is on the Vikings. I haven't really studied a whole lot on Vikings. Politically and militarily, I know a fair amount on the Vikings. But when it comes to culture and religion, I'm a little favored. The Norse. So, I'm not going to really get too much into that. But the development of Russia, one of the ingredients in the development of Russia was actually the Vikings. The Vikings became that stucco, let's put it, that stucco on the foundation to create the Russian civilization. That was the ingredients. I like to look at history and the development of everything in the sense of baking. You need this, this, and this to make cake. You take any one of those out, you ain't going to get cake. You might get something that looks like cake, but it's going to lose its taste. Or it's going to be a flat cake if you don't put yeast. Everything needs ingredients to develop. Even as people growing up, we develop. All these ingredients in our life that influenced us developed who we are right now. And every day you come into events, tragedies, good things, good and bad times all the time, and all of those have a really substantial amount of development on yourself. So, you're constantly developing until the day you die, then for some reason you stop.